Severe weather warnings across southeast Queensland today, storms moving through, power outages across the Lockyer Valley, heavy rain, flash flooding possible in some areas. That S what we're dealing with right now. And looking ahead, there is a tropical system developing that we need to talk about. Not because it S going to be catastrophic, not because you need to panic, but because if you were in far north Queensland, particularly around the Cape York Peninsula and the Cassowary Coast, you'll want to know what S coming over the next week. Let me be clear from the start. This system is not shaping up to be a major threat to the Queensland coastline. The models are showing a broad, messy, low-pressure system that S going to struggle to organise, but it will bring rainfall. Some areas need it, some areas will get too much of it. And there's still a small chance this could develop into something more significant once it moves offshore. So let S break down exactly what S happening, where the system S heading, and what you need to know if you are in the affected areas. Right now across southeast Queensland, conditions are absolutely vile. The humidity S off the charts. Brisbane hit the mid to high 30s this arvo, with humidity making it feel even worse. That warm, sticky air mass has been parked over the region all week. Storms tried to develop today, but most areas only saw drizzle and light rain. The real action has been further west. Laidley and surrounding areas in the Lockyer Valley copped a severe storm earlier. Power S out across multiple towns. The Bureau of Meteorology had the forecast spot on. People had time to prepare. That S exactly what we are aiming for with this update. Give you the information early so you can make decisions without the rush. Further north, conditions vary dramatically. Mount Carbine up near Lakeland recorded 30 degrees at 9:45 this morning with 80% humidity. Overnight minimum was 28. They had two big thunderstorms between 1 and 3 a.m. Absolutely hammered down. Then light rain for another couple of hours. That's the tropical moisture we're dealing with. Townsville saw some lovely drenching rain this morning. Cool change. Brief but welcome. Cairns and the Atherton tablelands are bone dry, seriously dry. The Lamb Range is at risk if conditions don't improve. Bushfire danger in tropical Queensland. That's how dry it's been. Darwin S sitting at 35 degrees with typical build-up humidity. The wet season's getting underway up there. Different system entirely, but it's all connected to the broader tropical patterns we are seeing. Compare that to southern Australia and you'd think you are looking at a different country. Tasmania saw -2 degrees this morning. Frost across the northern suburbs. Adelaide S been the lucky one. Mid-20s and sunny. Perfect weather while everyone else either bakes or freezes. That temperature contrast is important because it shows you the massive air masses at play across the continent right now. And when you've got that much variation, when systems start moving and interacting, things can get interesting fast. So let's talk about what S developing and why. We've got tropical low 15U out in the Indian Ocean west of the Kimberley. That system S getting hammered by wind shear. Upper level winds are ripping it apart. It is struggling to organise, but it is still a concern for Western Australia. We'll come back to that one because it could develop into a significant cyclone later next week. In the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf, we've got the remnants of ex-tropical cyclone Koji. That system S starting to reorganise. Heavy rainfall coming for the top end over the next few days. Darwin, the Tiwi Islands, northwestern rivers, we re-talking 100 to 300 millimetres. Some locations could see up to 500. That is significant, but the catchments aren't saturated, so flooding shouldn't be a major issue. Still, unsealed roads will be cut. Remote communities might be isolated for a few days. Now here, S, where it gets interesting for Queensland, their S enhanced convection in the Gulf of Carpentaria. Showers and thunderstorms have really blown up in the last 24 hours. That S because we've got tropical moisture streaming in from the systems up north. The monsoon trough is setting up, and sometime between Sunday night and early Monday morning, we re-expecting a tropical low to develop in the southern Gulf of Carpentaria. This is going to be tropical low 17U, and this is the Queensland system we need to watch. But before everyone gets worried, let me tell you what this system is not going to be. It's not going to be a major cyclone. It's not going to be Category 3 or higher. The forecast models are extremely clear on that. In fact, most models are struggling to even get this system to Category 1 status. And even if it does briefly reach cyclone strength, it's going to be weak, very weak. Why? Because this system is going to be broad, disorganised and messy right from the start. Similar to how Tropical Cyclone Koji developed. It took days to get itself rolling. Lots of moisture, lots of rain, but very slow to organise. And there's another factor working against it. Out in the Coral Sea, we've got tropical low 14U near New Caledonia. That system could develop into a cyclone over the next few days. When you've got two tropical systems relatively close to each other, they interact. They steal each other thunder, literally. The inflow gets disrupted. The organisation suffers. It's messy. So tropical low 17U is going to form in the Gulf of Carpentaria early next week, Monday or Tuesday most likely. It's going to be monsoon-like in nature, lots of moisture on the northern and eastern sides, heavy rainfall, but very poor organisation. The system will then track slowly east across the Cape York Peninsula. And this is where the rainfall really ramps up. Western Cape York Peninsula is in the firing line. Areas south of Waipa through to the inland sections. We're talking 150 to 250 millimetres over the next 6 days. Some pockets could see 400 millimetres near where the low develops. That's significant rain. Good rain for areas that need it. But enough to cause localised flooding, road closures and issues with creek crossings. As the system emerges into the Coral Sea, likely by Thursday or Friday, the 22nd or 23rd of January, the rainfall pattern shifts. The Cassowary Coast comes into play. Cardwell, Tully, Innisfail, up towards Lockhart River. You will see periods of heavy rainfall as the moisture wraps around the back of the system. But overall, I'm not expecting falls to exceed 200 millimetres across the Cassowary Coast. 300 is an absolute ceiling. So we're not talking about extreme or catastrophic rainfall in those areas. Further south, Herbert, Townsville, Burdekin, Central Queensland coastline. For those areas to see significant rainfall, the tropical low would need to come much closer to the coast. And right now, that's not what the models are showing. Once the system moves offshore into the Coral Sea, that's when things become a bit more uncertain. And this is important to understand. When the low is over land or very close to land, it struggles. Land interaction prevents organisation. The system can intensify properly. But once it gets offshore, away from land, conditions improve. The Coral Sea in January can support tropical cyclone development, warm water, low wind shear in certain areas, good outflow. So there is a small chance that once this system moves offshore, it could organise and strengthen. The models do show it approaching the coast again around the 24th or 25th, following weekend. But even in that scenario, the track would likely keep it offshore or bring it in as a weak system. For the system to come ashore as a proper tropical cyclone, it would have to emerge off the coast around the Cardwell area. And even then, it might have too much land interaction to really get itself rolling. So what does this mean for you if you in North Queensland? If you on the western side of Cape York Peninsula, prepare for heavy rain over the next week. Dirt roads will be cut. Creek crossings will be impassable. If you are in a remote community, make sure you've got supplies. Fuel, food, water, medicine, standard wet season preparations. If you're on the Cassowary Coast, expect on and off periods of heavy showers and thunderstorms from Sunday night onwards. Localised flooding is possible. Keep an eye on the rivers and creeks. Don T drive through floodwater. If it's flooded, forget it. That's not just a slogan. That is how you stay alive. If you're in Townsville, Mackay, Central Queensland, you don't need to worry about this system right now. Would you need the low to come much closer to the coast for it to impact you significantly? And that's not what the forecast is showing. Now let us talk about the models, because understanding what they are saying helps you understand the uncertainty. The access model the Bureau of Meteorology main model shows the low developing in the Gulf, tracking across Cape York, then moving offshore into the Coral Sea. It keeps the system relatively weak. Broad circulation, messy structure. That consistent across multiple runs. The GFS, the American Global Model, shows a similar pattern. low develops, crosses Cape York, moves offshore. It does bring the system a bit closer to the coast later in the forecast period, around the 24th or 25th, but still keeps it far enough offshore that landfall isn't a major concern. The European model, which is often the most accurate for tropical systems, has been flip-flopping a bit. A few days ago, it had the system staying further offshore. Now it's bringing it a bit closer to the coast. But even in that scenario, we are not talking about a strong cyclone making landfall. We are talking about a weak system that might brush the coast. The Google Weather AI models, which are brand new and showed incredible accuracy with tropical cyclone Koji, are showing good agreement. There's a solid cluster of forecast solutions showing development in the Coral Sea. The dots are relatively close together, which means good consistency between the different model runs. But as you go out past day 8 or 9, the dots spread out, that S normal. Forecast uncertainty increases with time. So what is my assessment? What would I be doing if I were in your situation? If I am in Far North Queensland, Cape York Peninsula, Cassowary Coast, I am preparing for a wet week. I am not panicking. I am not worried about a major cyclone. But I am making sure I've got what I need in case roads get cut or power goes out. That's sensible preparation for the wet season anyway. If I am in Townsville or further south, I am monitoring the forecast, but I am not changing any plans. I am certainly not cancelling anything for Australia Day weekend. The system just doesn't look threatening enough at this range. If I am anywhere in Queensland, I am checking the Bureau of Meteorology website every couple of days for updates. I am watching for changes in the forecast track. I am looking at the rainfall totals, and if the Bureau issues warnings, I am taking them seriously. But I am not losing sleep over this one, not yet, and probably not at all. Let me put this in perspective with some historical context. Many of you remember Tropical Cyclone Yassi, February 2011, Category 5, crossed the coast near Mission Beach. Winds up to 285 kilometres per hour, $11 billion in damage, towns destroyed. That was an extreme event. This system, even in the worst case scenario, is not going to be anything like Yassi. Not even close. Cyclone Larry in 2006, Category 5, hit Innisfail, 240 kilometre per hour winds, destroyed the banana crop, flattened homes. That was a proper cyclone making landfall. This system doesn't have the structure or the environmental conditions to reach that kind of intensity. Even Tropical Cyclone Koji, which just went through last week, was stronger than what we were expecting from this system. Koji reached Category 2 briefly before landfall in the Northern Territory. It brought heavy rain and localised flooding, but it wasn't catastrophic. This Queensland system looks weaker than Koji, more monsoon-like, broader, less organised. So when I say this isn't a major threat, I'm not downplaying it. I am being honest based on what the data shows. But I'm also not telling you to ignore it. Cyclone season is cyclone season. That background risk is always there. Things can change. Models can be wrong. Systems can surprise us. That is why you monitor. That is why you prepare. That is why you stay informed. Now let us talk about the bigger picture, because this system doesn't exist in isolation. We in an active phase right now across northern Australia, multiple systems developing or trying to develop. The monsoon trough is setting up properly. That S normal for mid to late January. This is when the tropics really come alive. Western Australia is the hot seat for the most significant activity. That system in the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf, the remnants of Koji, is forecast to move offshore into the Indian Ocean. And once it gets out there, away from land, conditions are extremely favourable for rapid intensification. We could be looking at a severe tropical cyclone, Category 3 or higher, approaching the Western Australian coast between the 22nd and the 25th of January, Exmouth up to Broome, Port Hedland, Karratha, Dampier. That entire stretch of coastline needs to be watching this situation very closely. If that system develops as forecast, it's going to be strong, much stronger than what we were expecting in Queensland. Western Australia Australia gets the serious cyclones. That is just geography, warm water, low wind shear, long fetch across the Indian Ocean, perfect conditions for intensification. So if you've got family or mates in WA, particularly along the Pilbara or Kimberley coast, make sure they re-aware. Make sure they re-monitoring the forecasts. Cyclone preparations should already be in place because we're in the peak of the season. Back to Queensland. Let's talk about rainfall, because even if this system doesn't develop into a strong cyclone, the rain is coming regardless. Southeast Queensland has been waiting for decent rain. The dams are getting low. Brisbane S had the driest wet season in years. Clouds every day. Bureau keeps forecasting storms, but most areas only get drizzle. It is frustrating. This system isn't going to solve that problem. The bulk of the rain is going to fall in Far North Queensland, Cape York Peninsula, Atherton Tablelands if the system tracks right, maybe the Cassowary Coast. Southeast Queensland might see some increased shower activity early next week as the monsoon trough sets up, but significant rain? Unlikely. You'd need the low to track much further south, and that's not on the cards. Central Queensland, same story. Capricornia coastline, you need the system to come closer or move further south. Right now, it is staying north. So if you're re-waiting for rain in Brisbane, Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, you are going to have to keep waiting. This system isn't your answer. Now let's talk about what happens after this system clears, because the pattern doesn't just shut off. We're re-entering the most active part of cyclone season, February, March, April. That S when we see the most tropical cyclone activity in Australian waters. The water temperatures are at their warmest. The monsoon trough is fully established. The upper level patterns support development. This system we're talking about now is just the first of potentially several systems that could impact Queensland over the next 2 months. That doesn't mean we're going to see multiple cyclones make landfall, but it does mean the risk is there. The background threat level is elevated. If you in North Queensland, this is the time to make sure your cyclone plan is up to date. Where are you going to shelter if a Category 3 or higher approaches? Do you have emergency supplies? Water, food, fuel, batteries, medication? Is your property prepared? Loose items secured, trees trimmed, roof in good condition. These aren't scare tactics. This is standard cyclone preparedness. You should be doing this every year anyway. But if you haven't done it yet, now is the time. For those of you who've been through cyclones before, you know the drill. You know what to expect. You know how to prepare. For younger people or people new to the tropics, talk to your neighbours. Talk to locals who've been through it. Learn from their experience. Cyclone Tracy. Christmas Eve 1974, Darwin was destroyed. Winds up to 217 kilometres per hour, 71 people killed. The city had to be evacuated and rebuilt. That is the extreme end of what cyclones can do, but most cyclones aren't a Tracy. Most are Category 1 or 2 systems that bring heavy rain, damaging winds in exposed areas and localised flooding. Still serious, still dangerous, but manageable if you are prepared. This Queensland system, if it even reaches cyclone strength, is going to be on the weaker end of that spectrum. Category 1 at most. More likely it stays as a tropical low, but you still treat it seriously. You still monitor it. You still prepare. Let me address something I've seen in the comments. Some people saying the media always exaggerates these things. Fair concern. There's been a lot of hype over the years for systems that fizzled out. I get the frustration. But here's the thing. The Bureau of Meteorology, the official forecasters, they are not trying to sell newspapers or get clicks. They are trying to keep people safe. When they issue a warning, there's a reason. The data supports it. My job here is to give you the straight goods. No hype, no fear-mongering, just the meteorology and what it means for you. And based on the meteorology, this system deserves attention, but it doesn't deserve panic. It's a significant weather event for parts of Far North Queensland. It's not the end of the world. You've seen worse. You'll see worse again. Be prepared, but done to lose your head over it. One more thing about the forecast uncertainty. Some of you might be wondering why I can just tell you exactly where this system is going to go and exactly how strong it's going to be. Weather forecasting isn't like that, especially with tropical systems, especially at 7 to 10 day range. The models are good. They are getting better every year, but they are not perfect. A tropical low that hasn't even formed yet. We're remaking educated guesses based on the atmospheric conditions we can see now and how we expect them to evolve. But small changes in steering currents, small changes in wind shear, small wobbles in the track, those can all add up to big differences in where the system goes and how strong it gets. That is why you monitor. That is why you check for updates. That is why you don't just look at one forecast and assume that is gospel. The forecast will change. Maybe not by much, maybe just small adjustments, but it will change. And you need to be ready to adjust your plans accordingly. So to wrap this up, what do you need to know? Tropical low 17U is likely to develop in the Gulf of Carpentaria early next week. Monday or Tuesday, most likely. It is going to be broad, disorganised and monsoon-like in nature. It will track east across the Cape York Peninsula, bringing heavy rainfall to Western Cape York and potentially the Cassowary Coast. Rainfall totals 150 to 250 millimetres across Western Cape York. Isolated pockets up to 400, Cassowary Coast up to 200, maybe 300 in isolated areas. That S significant but not extreme. The system will move offshore into the Coral Sea by Thursday or Friday. Once offshore, there's a chance it could organise and strengthen. But even if it does, the forecast track keeps it far enough from the coast that a significant landfall before Australia Day is unlikely. For Townsville, Mackay, Central Queensland, this system is not a threat at this stage. Monitor the forecast, but don't change your plans. For Far North Queensland, prepare for a wet week. Standard wet season precautions. Don't panic, but don't be complacent either. Check the Bureau of Meteorology website regularly. If they issue warnings, take them seriously. If you in a flood-prone area, know your evacuation routes. If you on a dirt road, expect to be cut off. And remember, we're in cyclone season. This system is just one of potentially several we'll see over the next 2 months. Stay vigilant, stay prepared, stay informed. That is the forecast. That is the situation. Any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer. Updates will come as the situation